offseason, several teams making these head coaching changes from a defensive guy to an offensive-minded coach. Obviously, the Bills handing the reins to their former OC, Joe Brady. They had the most efficient offense in the NFL under him since 2023, ranked top 5 in points per game and yards per play. Do you think that continues, Graz, with Brady as the head coach?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because the offense did kind of level off a little bit in some ways this year. And the reliance on the run game when Joe Brady took over a couple of years ago worked very well for a while, but it seems like teams were catching on, and their inability to be explosive in the pass game was a problem. So even if Sean McDermott had stayed, I think Joe Brady's assignment would have been to come up with some new ideas for how to re-energize this offense. That remains, I'm sure, part of his assignment in addition to taking over head coach roles, which is a role he's never had before. I think there's a lot of work ahead for Joe Brady.
Talk about a lot of work ahead. Let's go to Atlanta. The Falcons bring in Kevin Stefanski, hoping to build a franchise that has been a top 10 scoring offense only once since their last playoff appearance back in 2017. By the way, the Browns ranked 29th in scoring offense under Stefanski, something you may not have realized. He was a coach of the year a couple times. J-Mac, does this continue for the Falcons, this trend downward?
Yeah, I believe so. And I think the addition of Stefanski, I think he had years as a really good play caller. But in order to be a top 10 offense and put up a lot of points, you got to have a quarterback. And right now in February, we're still unsure of who the Falcons quarterback is going to be. Michael Penix is dealing with an injury. Kirk Cousins probably going to be released. Do they bring him back? A lot of question marks around that quarterback position.
Yeah, he may be sitting at a desk like this next year. Who knows? With Kirk Cousins to Atlanta as the Cardinals hired their first-year head coach, Mike LaFleur. So, of course, we're going to get that mixed up all year. Mike, Matt. They threw the ball more than any other team this season, but they ranked in the bottom half of the league in passing metrics. So, Field, when Murray was healthy, that offense wasn't very good. Do you expect that to continue?
In the short term, I do, because as we sit here on February 13th or 12th, whatever it is, I have no idea where the quarterback carousel is going to spin and land for Arizona. We'll talk about Kyler Murray in just a moment, but they're picking 3rd in the draft. Probably not the year to be taking a quarterback number 3 overall, and this veteran free agent market is incredibly unpredictable. I would not say there are a bunch of names that inspire confidence that this offense can turn things around. It will be nice, though, to have running back James Conner, the heart and soul of that offense, back next season.
Okay, so what is the scoop? What's going on with Kyler?
$36.8 million guaranteed this year. And if he's on the roster 3rd day of the league year, which is a little more than 5 weeks from now, another $19.5 million in 2027 salary becomes guaranteed. So he's going to be tough to trade unless they're willing to pay a big chunk of that money. If they can't get a deal done by March 15th, they don't want that 19.5 for next year to kick in. So he likely ends up getting released in that situation. So the question is, what are they willing to do to facilitate a potential trade? And then where do they go from there after Kyler Murray is no longer on the team? Jacoby Brissett is under contract for 1 more year. So he did finish the season pretty strong as their starting quarterback.
We love Jacoby Brissett.
I'm saying, like, as bridge guys go, right, you could do worse.
Yeah,
and
exactly
he's been
right.
in a lot of different situations. Jacoby Brissett was Tua's backup. He was in Cleveland and all of this. So he is a leader and a guy that you can rely on in those situations. I look at this for Kyler Murray. You have to imagine at some point throughout the interview process, LaFleur and Monty Ossenfort, the general manager, they all had a discussion of what the ideas were around Kyler Murray. I think to Graz's point, when you start looking for trade partners, what is another team willing to give up? If they are able to eat some of his salary, are you willing to give up Kyler Murray for a day 3 pick? Is he worth a 2nd-round pick? I think those are going to be the question marks for Monty Ossenfort. Like, what are you willing to give Kyler Murray up for? Because his value, I think, can be very different across the league. There's potential with him at quarterback, but I don't know that a team is willing to give up the farm in order to get Kyler Murray at this point.
I wonder if the Cardinals might have to send a pick.
As
part
yeah,
of
can I ask you really quickly, Field, though, because we've seen what happened with Sam Darnold, right? And I don't know if Kyler Murray is a good comp, but is it possible for him to go to a different place under a different coach and really blossom as a quarterback?
Totally. He's got plenty of talent. There was a year in which it was past the halfway point, and we were talking about Kyler Murray as the MVP frontrunner. Let's be clear, though. This feels like one where a change of scenery is best for all parties involved, right? Kyler, I think, would be happier with an opportunity to restart his career somewhere else. And for Arizona, you can kind of clean the books up a little bit and get this offense slowly, perhaps, building back up. There's a part of me that wants to say this offense has some sleeping giant potential because they've got some serious investments. Maybe the best tight end in the NFL in Trey McBride. a guy that took 4th overall, who some called a generational prospect in Marvin Harrison Jr. And then Michael Wilson last year played like the player that we thought Marvin Harrison Jr. was supposed to be when Marv was on the sidelines for them. Now, they got to clean up the right side of the offensive line in a major way, but there's just so much uncertainty around that quarterback spot. I wish I could pull out a crystal ball or Adam Schefter's drafted tweets and tell you what's going to happen a month from now in free agency at quarterback for the Cardinals, but until I have more clarity on that, it's hard for me to see this team making a gigantic leap forward on offense, especially in the division they play in. It's the most stacked division
in the entire
division.
I mean, just climbing out of the basement is like climbing Mount Everest, right?
And listening to what Gross said as far as like the value of Kyler Murray, a team like the New York Jets, who have a ton of cap space, do you maybe entertain if you don't have to give up a lot to get Kyler Murray, to get him in your building with the hope of what you just mentioned? Hey, we just watched Sam Darnold, who we drafted a high overall 3rd, and we watch him now go win a Super Bowl. Could we possibly bring Kyler Murray over here and maybe he has a turnaround? And if he doesn't, we can cut ties with him and move forward after not giving up a ton to get him in the building.
You know, I think is the most intriguing Kyler Murray team. No information here. This is simply just
that's
like
what we're talking about.
I'm throwing at a team that I think would be fun and logical and would be interesting. Minnesota Vikings. You know, I think it's obvious they're going to do something at quarterback this offseason in the veteran ranks, right? Whether that means a veteran who you bring in to play if things don't go well for J.J. McCarthy, or a guy to come in and challenge J.J. right away. But Kevin O'Connell, something of a quarterback connoisseur, a team that obviously is unsatisfied with what happened last year, right? They went into last year thinking they would compete for a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They did not, obviously. They came up quite short. Yeah. But Kyler would give them some energy and some competition in a room and maybe bring out the best in J.J. McCarthy, because maybe there is something there that motivated Minnesota to trade up one spot and take him 10th overall.
Listen, there's plenty of people who need quarterbacks, right?
Yes.
I might be scared of New Jersey in my career if I was a quarterback. I don't know about that.
When your options start to dwindle, you got to go where they want you.
There you go. All right, still to come on NFL Live. Fields' latest mock draft has the Rams making a defensive statement in the first round. So we're going to debate that. Is that really the right decision for LA? J-Mac, he actually thinks so, and he's going to explain why now.
I got one right.
So tease it, right?
He's saying no to that.
Yeah. Welcome back to NFL Live. The Rams just one win away from making their 3rd Super Bowl under Sean McVay. A focal point this offseason has to be their pass defense. They rank middle of the pack, including first downs, touchdowns, and total catches. It was kind of tough for that secondary this season, but help is on the way, according to our very own Field Yates in his latest mock draft. He has the Rams taking Tennessee corners, Jermon McCoy, and Colton Hood. So you got 2 corners from the same school in round 1 going to the same team, which would be really cool, actually.
I have some history on that.
I was going to say, right?
I like it.
The Rams recently hired Tennessee defensive back coach to their staff.
There you
go.
go.
Never in the common draft era had 2 players at the same position drafted by the same team in the same round.
Hey,
in the same school.
Get the gang back together.
It's
Let's
a lot
go.
of same there.
I like it.
It is.
Yeah.
Do you like that move for the Rams? Is that the way to go?
Do I like a team drafting 2
I know, exactly.
in the first round
That was a
of the
rhetorical
draft?
question.
Absolutely. Phil, you're doing your research. You're doing some good work. But listen, you look at this Rams team. They were right there at the NFC Championship game, and you look at what Sam Darnold was able to do in that game. 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards, and being able to pick them apart in the secondary. We watched Jackson Smith and Jigba score a touchdown where he was wide open. So you're looking at a Rams team that you're saying, all right, how do we get back to that point next year and figure out a way to get over the hump and help in the secondary? You watched them throughout the second half of that season. They really struggled with rotating DBs all the way through. Durant is a free agent. Witherspoon is a free agent. They traded for Roger McCreary. He is also a free agent. So there's a lot of empty spots in that cornerback room. So I think getting more guys to throw to that problem is going to help them. Also, the front, they have to play better and get more pressure. That's the way their defense is built.
Little education on these 2 prospects for those that don't follow college football closely. Jermon McCoy, even if you do follow the college football closely, you may not know a whole lot about it because he was out this entire past season. He tore his ACL about 13 months ago. If he had been eligible to be drafted last year, probably goes in the first 10 picks. If he were fully healthy, he might be a top 5 pick in this year's draft class. Long, confident perimeter, man coverage corner. This guy is going to go really high despite that ACL. Colton Hill, you actually see it right there. This kid's got an infectious energy, super explosive, vertical. He's got some good ball skills as well. Unafraid to mix it up in the running game. Has a little bit of like that Jekyll and Hyde, a bit of a gambler sometimes on these double moves, have come back to bite him, but he certainly is going to be a guy that if he runs at the combine will impress scouts with his time speed. He can absolutely fly.
They took 2 defensive linemen from Florida State with their first 2 picks 2 years ago.
They did, yes.
Right? So this is a concept, right? Same school.
Yeah, it's kind of like two McCourties.
It makes sense.
2 McCourties better than 1.
Yeah, there you go.
Was J-Mac better than D-Mac? Just Dad, if you're watching.
Oh man, they're bad. These guys can play tricks on people. We have Matthew Stafford coming back. Yay!
Yes.
Awesome, right? He's your MVP. He is getting older. When you're looking at long term and you're planning for the future and dealing with an aging quarterback, what should they be doing on the offensive side of the ball?
Well, we know that they have to address quarterback in a long-term way at some point.
Yes.
This is a team with 2 first-round picks. It's a team whose history tells us that they're very open to using first-round picks in a way other than making the pick.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe if you don't like the quarterback options in this year's draft, maybe the Rams are a candidate to do this again and amass, maybe make another deal that gets them another first-round pick in 2027. You know that front office has that level of creativity in terms of how they want to use their picks. You know they're going to need to replace Matthew Stafford at some point in the next couple of years. I think the Rams are one of the more creative teams in how they use those early-round picks.
Can I add one more piece of context to that concept of moving back into 2027? This is not just my analysis. This is talking to scouts who, for a living, are surveying multiple drafts out. The 2027 NFL draft has a chance to be one of the most anticipated and hyped over the last 20 years. It is loaded, and I'm not talking just quarterbacks. I'm talking all over the place. There is serious star power in 2027. Would not be surprised if other teams have the same thing on their mind that Graz just mentioned.
Yeah, Stetson Bennett's the only quarterback that McVay's ever drafted, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go. See what you learn on the show, especially in the offseason, all the trivia, everything. All right, let's get into press coverage with our DB and our draft expert. So, Field, you have a couple more defensive backs going in round 1. Let's start with the Finns at pick 11.
Yeah, Mansour Delane spent 1 year at LSU, and it was a dominant season at that. No cornerback allowed a lower opposing quarterback rating than Delane, who's got excellent man-to-man technique. He's got very good size as well. The big question is probably, what is his time speed? Scouts consistently relay, though, their GPS tracked speed was totally fine during his LSU season. Very strong ball skills as well. I think he goes somewhere in the first half of the first round.
Well, when you talk about the Miami Dolphins, what does their cornerback room look like? This was a team that their 2 starting cornerbacks didn't join their team until one during the middle of training camp and the other right before Douglas. They signed him, and he ended up being the best cornerback on the team. Jack Jones was the guy on the other side. Beyond them, every other cornerback felt like they ended up on IR with Kader Kohu, Storm Duck, and all of those guys. So them going cornerback in the first round makes a ton of sense moving forward and trying to build on that position.
Field, how about the Vikings adding some help on the back end of the defense at pick 18?
Brandon Cisse may be a household name after the combine because this is one of the freakiest athletes in the entire draft class. Spent 2 years at NC State, just 1 year at South Carolina. He is an incredible athlete with very good size. Where he's most comfortable is getting up in your face, playing press man coverage, and basically saying, if you're an opposing perimeter receiver, I got you. The other 10 on my team can figure out everybody else. Defensive coordinator Brian Flores amongst the most creative defensive minds in all of football as well.
You said it, creative minds, and how he moves everybody around and gets these guys to play at a high level. For this Minnesota Vikings team, Byron Murphy, he's a starter, he'll return. Isaiah Rodgers, who they signed in free agency. Behind them, they don't really have any depth. They're built through their safeties in the middle with Josh Metellus and Harrison Smith. Both of those guys play all over the field. Getting people on the outside that can lock down is paramount for what Brian Flores wants to deploy.
All right, let's go back to the Super Bowl where Hawks safety Julian Love may have seen a tell from Patriots quarterback Drake May. Take a listen to this.
You knew yours was coming.
I'm telling you.
You've been in the right spot the whole time.
How about a little pick in the soupy? Come on, dude. Love you, bro.
Love you, dude.
J-Mac, obviously you speak DB. Was there something that May was doing that was tipping off the defense?
I think when you watch film for 2 weeks, as much as they possibly did, you're looking at a young quarterback that when he's not sure of what he's going to see, you heard Julian Love say he's going to hitch to confirm what he sees. So what that means, if I'm a quarterback and I drop back and I see the coverage and I'm like, okay, this is cover one, man to man, and I think I know what I'm seeing, I look at Hannah and it's like, all right, I'm ready to throw the ball. But is Hannah open? I take a quick second to confirm it, and that quick second is all the DB needs to be able to break and make a play. You also heard him mention Stafford's name and the word blindly. And I think when you talk about quarterback play, when you've played as long as Matthew Stafford, he was drafted in my draft back in 2009, and he's still playing at a high level. You don't need to confirm anything. From the snap of the ball, when the ball hits his hands, he's already confirmed what the defense is, and he knows exactly where to go with the football. He's not waiting for confirmation. That's tough on the DBs because if you don't anticipate it, you're not going to have enough time to get there. With Drake May in only his second year and his first year in a new system, trying to figure out that Seattle defense, with the pressure that's in your face, they knew they'd be able to break and drive on the ball and be able to make plays.
Makes you appreciate, and I think it's a little easier to see some of the physical traits that defensive players on Seattle's team have, right? There are plenty of notable guys in that category. It makes you appreciate, though, that like the football intelligence is on par with all the physical traits they have in Seattle. And then if you're Drake May, I'm not sure you have to watch all this sound now. You might want to decompress for a week or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the most important thing from this past Sunday going forward is you channel all the things that bubbled up and turn them into teaching points. You're 23 years old. It's no guarantee you get back to the Super Bowl, but it's clear there are a lot of things that he can take from that game that he's not quite at the level that he needs to be right now and say, over the next 3 to 5 years, can I turn those into limitations, turn those limitations into areas of great strength?
Yeah, such a sophisticated defense. I mean, we could talk all day just about that defense and the job that Mike McDonald did. All right, coming up, the Cowboys.
Yeah, 12s! How y'all living, man? First, we did not care. Second, we still don't care. Third, the Super Bowl Hawks live here. See, we're the best in the world. We not done. We coming back next year. I'm not fucking leaving. Yeah. But keep it a buck, I'm probably the last person they should have gave the mic to. If you got anything to say for my quarterback, you got anything to say for my defense, and you got anything to say about the city of Seattle, I got 2 words for you. Q.
And that was the most memorable speech of the parade yesterday. As we welcome you to NFL Live, Hannah Storm, Dan Graziano, Jay McField. Here we are, the offseason, guys.
Yes.
Let's turn the page, right?
Speak for yourself,
What's
right?
that?
Yeah, not you, Mr. Draft expert, every single day. All right, listen, the Hawks, they got to defend that title, right? We just heard it there. Several key defenders set to be free agents this season, from safety Kobe Bryant to corners Reek Woolen, Josh Jobe. Those 3, by the way, accounted for a third of Seattle's interceptions and pass breakups, so this is not insignificant. Also worth noting, Devin Witherspoon, their cornerback, is eligible for an extension this offseason. So as they prove, defense wins championships.
Indeed it does.
Yeah, we got these expiring contracts. What should the top priority be?
Well, you saw Devin Witherspoon at the bottom of that screen. I think he'll be the top priority now that he's able to get that extension. You get that done early because the price tag is only going to go up, and we saw his performance in the Super Bowl. So as I look at that for Seattle, you're looking at different guys. You look at that safety position with Kobe Bryant. Ty Okada, he filled in for him. He did admirable throughout the course of the season. I could see them letting him walk. This defense is set up for that front 4 to get after the quarterback. How much are you willing to pay your corners, Reek Woolen and Josh Jobe, on the outside? Or are you willing to roll the dice and maybe sign another veteran or look to the draft? Hey, the one thing that's beautiful as we look at that ceremony where they're going out there in the parade, when you win, everybody wins and guys get paid because other teams throughout the course of the league are going to look at those guys that were on that screen and say, you know what? We want a talented player that has Super Bowl experience, and we're going to want to bring them into our program and let them lead. So they're going to have to let some of those guys walk and believe in what John Schneider has done and some of the other guys that he's drafted.
Yeah, the Seahawks' actions are going to tell you, who they prioritize as the building blocks. Devin Witherspoon, a high pick who's played like one, he should get an extension. And it should be a big one. Yeah. Seattle has a ton ton of cap space. I think fourth or fifth most in the entire league, the way they've managed their roster, the way they've managed their cap. So they're going to be able to make the choices they want to make. If one of the defensive backs who's a free agent prices himself out, they'll go find somebody else. If the running back, Kenneth Walker, who was Super Bowl MVP, if he prices himself out, my guess is they go find someone else. I think Rashid Shaheed is a free agent to watch. I think they'll make him a priority because I don't think he'll be a break the bank wide receiver contract, and he helps them in so many different ways in special teams and as a number 2 wide receiver. So I look for that, and then I'm fascinated to see what the choices are that they make on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they picked 32 as well in the draft. That's a nice little problem to have. You have to wait all the way until 32. I'll say this about the Seahawks, though, is think about some of the players that were significant contributors to this Super Bowl victory. Obviously, most notably Sam Darnold. They assigned as a free agent last year, but they also traded for and eventually extended Leonard Williams and Ernest Jones, defensive tackle and linebacker. You might see this team over the next few years enter a new phase, which is basically it's mostly in-house, right? Those big swings that you make either in free agency or on the trade market are a lot fewer and further between once you have reached this level of success and team building, because every dollar you spend means one less dollar to pay somebody else. Let's assume that Jackson Smith-Njigba and Devin Witherspoon both get new contracts this offseason. That's all great and well and good. You're already, though, planning about what it could look like for other younger players on your roster that are not even extension eligible. This is something that the teams that have sustained success have to deal with. As I said yesterday on the show, it's the single greatest problem to have in roster building in professional football. You got a lot of good guys, you got to pay them.
And I think as you talk about Jackson Smith-Njigba and the offensive side of the ball, you mentioned Darnold as well. Them not signing Darnold to that massive contract, it allows you to make some other moves.
Right?
And then you also look at this with Kubiak now moving on to the Raiders. From an offensive standpoint, I would assume they elevate within, as they've already interviewed 4 different candidates, just because you just won the Super Bowl with the staff that's there. Do you want to go change it from elsewhere? So now as you're looking at paying those players, who are the guys that now can carry the mantle and continue to move it forward?
Yeah, that staff had a lot of responsibility under Clint Kubiak. Again, he is out of the building. So what's the latest with the search for an OC?
They are interviewing 4 internal candidates from their staff yesterday and today, in and around the parade festivities. Mike McDonald has said that he would prefer continuity. Here are the names. Now, look, some of these guys, 1 or 2 of them may be candidates to go with Clint Kubiak to the Raiders. But if not, I think, they're all good candidates for offensive coordinator there, as Mike McDonald wants to keep things moving the way they have been, and you can understand why. They just won the Super Bowl. They have to do a search. They have to interview external candidates, but don't be surprised if it ends up back at one of these guys. Talk about Sam Darnold's contract. He has a $15 million roster bonus that becomes fully guaranteed tomorrow. I don't think the Seahawks are going to have any problem picking that up and paying him a total of $27.5 million this year, after he made about $40 million with signing bonus, incentives, etc. in the first year of the deal. Some speculation as to whether Darnold might get an extension. I feel like that would go against a lot of what Seattle stands for. We'll see what they do. And then the Giants adding former Titans head coach Brian Callahan to John Harbaugh's coaching staff as the pass game coordinator, joining Matt Nagy, another former head coach who was hired as offensive coordinator. A couple former offensive coordinators on that staff as well, and Greg Roman and Tim Kelly. John Harbaugh loading up his coaching staff with NFL coaching experience.
Yeah, Mike Bloomgren, right? A former college head coach. So, yeah, a lot of voices, a lot of cooks in that kitchen. And as we saw, Jackson Dart had a very solid season as a rookie, despite not starting a game until week 4. Over that span, he led all quarterbacks in rushing yards, top 2 in rushing touchdowns, even though actually he missed 2 additional games at that point. From a passing standpoint, Dart ranked just outside the top 10 in QBR passing touchdowns per interception. Pretty good stuff. And in Field Yates' brand new mock draft, which is dropped on ESPN.com, he has the Giants going defense. Safety Caleb Downs from Ohio State. Okay, and we know that John Harbaugh's in charge, and he comes from Baltimore, that defensive DNA. Why did you have him going to that side of the ball?
Well, as J-Mac knows, you can never have enough good defensive backs, even though corners are the superior players.
I'm just happy. I'm just happy you said it.
Let's get that out of the way. Right.
I just want to make that part very clear here. But John Harbaugh has perhaps witnessed as much great safety play as any head coach of this generation, maybe ever, right? He began his coaching career as a head coach with the Ravens with Ed Reed, a gold jacket player. Most recently, he coached Kyle Hamilton, an incredibly unique player, as an all-pro for the Baltimore Ravens. Caleb Downs might be the most complete player in the entire draft class. There's not really anything he can't do. He's been at Alabama, at Ohio State. He's played as the center fielder and showed off range and ball skills. He's basically been a linebacker in a scheme as well. He may not be the size of a linebacker, but he has a physicality and a toughness. He's played under great defensive minds at both Alabama and most recently at Ohio State. Not a glaring weakness in this player's game, and in an exercise that can sometimes be very futile and difficult to actually figure out. I think you can do a whole lot worse than what feels like a home run in Caleb Downs.
You like that, DB at 5?
I do. What I like about Caleb Downs is what you just said, versatility. And when you talk about John Harbaugh and you talk about safety play, I know you love Kyle Hamilton.
Yes.
He's a guy that came in as a safety, and you assumed he was going to be a middle-of-the-field player or rangy player. And then next thing you know, he's down at the line of scrimmage, and he allows other people to do other things within that defense. So I think for the Giants, you just signed Javon Holland a year ago to a massive deal. You drafted Tyler Nubin, who's there, more of a strong safety type of player. How can you move those guys around to help complement a guy like Caleb Downs? I think that's the big thing with that, getting guys out of versatile pieces. And then on top of that, what they have up front. Like, you have guys that can get after the quarterback. My only concern would be, is getting more help for Jackson Dart. Can you get a receiver opposite Malik Neighbors? Are you bringing Jermaine Illuminor, the right tackle, back to keep your quarterback safe? Those are going to be the questions of how much you can build around your young quarterback.
And that's the thing. It's the number 5 pick. So, like, franchise cornerstone is the goal, right?
Yes.
At whatever that
Good
position
point.
is. John Harbaugh's not used to picking this high. The Giants are. And no, I'm not kidding. That's true. Though. I mean, they know, like guys like Abdul Carter and Malik Neighbors who pick in these ranges. So that's what I think. So my question on Caleb Downs is, like, is he that guy? Is he Kyle Hamilton, who was the 14 pick? But there's a big difference between 5 and 14 in terms of value.
Yeah, Kyle unfortunately fell because of his speed. Right, he had a slower 40, close to 4.6, which as a safety is apparently a no-go. You got to drop all the way down to number 14. What's helping the case of Caleb Downs? Two things is, first of all, this is not some otherworldly draft. The number of blue chip players is very low compared to some of the recent drafts we have had. Two is, think about what's happened in the Super Bowl this past Sunday. Like, Nicky Manwari plays for a defense where he might be the third safety. He's also the nickel for Seattle. You can have defenses where you're playing with 5 or 6 defensive backs on the field, 60 or 65% of your snaps, that even if you now have 3 legitimate safety investments, that might be enough because you're justifying these players all as starters. More like your third safety player plays more than your starting defensive tackle.
I mean, he is a Swiss Army knife, right?
Yeah. So
let me ask you something, Graz, and I don't know how much we actually know about this. We remember all those discussions when Harbaugh took over the job, right? About how much he would have over personnel in terms of overseeing that. And you figure Baltimore built one of the best rosters in football, right? Great scouting department. Like, what kind of impact have we seen John Harbaugh have so far?
You've already seen some moves, come behind-the-scenes moves in the building, guys who have been there, people who have been in positions that have been shifted into different positions after decades with the organization, some real mainstays. So John Harbaugh has already set about constructing this thing his way. And in terms of who gets to make the pick, him or GM Joe Shane, that could be semantic to a certain extent. But I think John Harbaugh's influence is not at all in question.
Which one makes $20 million a year?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And I think that's a good point, a good question, Hannah, because now when we look at their roster, because you can say, hey, you paid Javon Holland, you drafted Tyler Nubin, Drew Phillips has been your slot guy, and you can look at Caleb Downs and say, hey, is he a luxury? But when you bring in a new head coach that has some say in the roster, you got to go get guys that he feels like are his guys and are going to set the tone with the right mentality.
And quickly to the Manwari comparison, this Giants defense likely to be conceptually similar to what Mike McDonald, who came from Baltimore, runs in Seattle.
Yeah, got a lot of bang for your buck, right? With the right player. All right, guys, on the D-line in round 1.
Let's talk through it here. Edge Arvell Reese from Ohio State, who also is a stand-up inside linebacker, goes number 2 overall. Extremely versatile player, has great physical tools as well. Still a work in progress as a pass rusher. Did not register a single sack in Ohio State's last 6 games of last season. But as far as upside go, there's a pretty compelling case that no defensive player has as much as he does. We're talking about an elite athlete overall who's just getting started as a rusher. Caleb Banks from Florida played just 3 games last season because of a variety of injuries. But when he plays, this guy's a dominant force. 6'6", 330 pounds, 35-inch arms, absolutely dominated during one-on-one drills at the Senior Bowl a couple weeks ago, which That doesn't determine your draft stock, but it does remind scouts of how much natural raw talent he has. The Jets have all kinds of holes on defense.
I think, yes, impact players on defense for a team that at the deadline traded away its best defensive lineman and best cornerback, whose coach is a defensive back that they didn't have an interception all year. I think they need impact.
That's a fake stat, right?
It's a fake stat?
It's got
Oh, no,
right?
They did not have. You can look it up. They did not have one interception all season long.
Correct.
I was on hand for week 18.
Yes.
We all had our fingers crossed. It did not happen.
It did not happen. So
The streak continued.
impact guys up front that can stress out a quarterback into a mistake, guys on the back end that can catch the ball. Like they have to do something on defense that can change the game and put their offense, give them some short fields, make it a little bit easier on them, whoever ends up being the quarterback. They got a lot of problems.
They need so much. They just need so much. Anyone they draft is going to be an
Good
upside.
news, we just mentioned that 2027 NFL draft. 3 first-round picks next year for the Jets.
There you go. Well, they'll need it. Another team with 2 first-round picks. How about that? That's the Cowboys. Another double dip on defense. They need that.
Yeah, they sure do. Let's start with Sonny Styles. Same thing here, Ohio State linebacker. He is a former safety who moved to linebacker and has become one of the best linebackers in all of college football. 2 years ago, he had 6 sacks. They were blitzing him more. This past year, you saw more of his sideline-to-sideline range. He can cover up against tight ends. Obviously, being a former safety, he has some natural coverage skills. And then Keldrick Falk from Auburn, who 2 years ago in 2024 is a true sophomore, had 7 sacks. You're sitting there saying to yourself, this could be a top 5 pick in the draft. The rush production this past year was not there. 6'6", 280 pounds, long arms, already an aggressive and impressive defensive lineman in terms of defending the run. Going to have to put it together more as a rusher, but this Cowboys team in desperate need of front 7 reinforcements.
Yet another new defensive coordinator and Christian Parker.
Sure.
Kind of educate us as to him and what kind of players do you think would fit into that system?
Yeah, well, Christian Parker comes over from the Philadelphia Eagles, where you saw him grow the rookies that he had with Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell when they first got there. Before Philly, he was in Denver, both with Vic Fangio. And you talk about Vic Fangio and what he likes to do. Well, his system is very different than what the Cowboys were running. So when you mention Styles at linebacker and potentially putting him next to a guy like Overshown and giving you the ability to have 2 inside linebackers that can get sideline to sideline and that can fly around the field will be a huge difference. I think with Christian Parker, you're also going to see a more aggressive defense. That was the thing watching Dallas last year. They got towards the end of the season when they acquired a guy like Quentin Williams. They tried to get more aggressive and come after you. But the beginning of the season, it was all of a softer zone playing with Matt Eberflus. Like, I expect that to change this year, and getting more players that fit that bill is going to be a priority for them.
That was a big issue in Dallas, was Eberflus trying to run a system that didn't seem to fit the personnel. And now the personnel will change on the back end. Trevon Diggs no longer there. Like, they'll make some changes on the back end. And Christian Parker, a fascinating hire for that reason. You point out his work with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in Philadelphia. I'm fascinated to see what kind of defensive backs they infuse that roster with over the next couple of years, given his ability to develop those guys. But, there'll be enough personnel turnover on that defensive side of the ball that the new defensive coordinator this time should be able to mold it in the image that he wants, as opposed to square peg, round hole kind of situation they had last year.
Something has to happen. They've only drafted 2 defensive players in the first round since 2018. Here we go. But Fields right. They're going to go defense.